Welcome to Greater Good Radio Hawaii, where we develop tomorrow's leaders by bringing you up close and personal with today's top business people. Greater Good Radio Hawaii is dedicated to social entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Evan Leong, and with me is my co-host, Carrie Leong.
Thank you, Evan. Today's guest is Josh Feldman, president of Tori Richard Limited. Tori Richard was established in 1953 as a retailer of sophisticated women resort wear. Since then, Tori Richard has evolved into fine resort wear, retail stores, and licensing. Josh led a mainland expansion and increased sales by 500% over 3 years. Please welcome to Greater Good Radio, Josh Feldman. Welcome to our show, Josh.
Thanks very much to have me. I'm very honored.
So, Tori Richard is a family business, correct?
Correct. It was actually started by my father and a woman named Janice Moody in 1956.
And what is your role in the company and your position currently?
Today, I am president and CEO.
And what do you do?
Gosh, probably too much of everything. Responsibilities on a day-to-day basis include overseeing operations, make sure we ship product out on time, customer service management to make sure that our customers, and we have customers all over the world, to make sure their products are shipped and they're happy with them, doing the sales, product development. There really isn't much that I don't do, which maybe is to my detriment. I'm not sure yet. I haven't figured that out.
Well, how are you managing your time then?
Not very well. And I say that jokingly and seriously. And that is probably my biggest issue is time management. And in listening to some of the radio shows you've done, it seems that some people have a good handle on it and some people don't. And I think it's just with time, hopefully, I'll be better at it.
So when you first got started in your family business, was it after you got out of college, or were you always doing things here and there, summertime and when you were younger?
Yeah, and that's a natural question. And I wish I had this romantic story of playing with sewing machines when I was 3 years old. But the reality is I don't have that story. Growing up, it was always there, and occasionally in summers I would help with a few things. But I was pretty determined not to be a part of that business, that growing up. Which I think is sort of a natural reaction for a lot of people in similar situations. There's sort of this, I'm going to create my own identity separate from it and prove myself beyond it.
When did you change your mind then and decide to get involved?
When I got smart. It became very apparent. Well, one, I always wanted to be able to come back to Hawaii. And when I finished school, the family was not involved in the operating of the business at the time, and there were a lot of issues. And my father said, "Well, why don't you come back with me, and we'll see. You'll take a year off." I was on my way to law school, and we'll see what happens. And I have a degree in art in addition to a regular BA, and it was built for me.
So, being that you do a lot of different things as president, and your major was in art, does that mean you also help in the design of the different wear?
Well, actually, my major was political science, but my first role was product development when I came back with my dad, because we had gone through 40 years at that point, less than 40 years, where there really hadn't been a lot of product innovation since the family had left the business. There was absentee management. And with any business with absentee management, things can sometimes get stale.
Wait, so nobody in the family was involved at all? It was handled by other people, and there was no oversight or anything? Was he on the board, or?
My dad always retained the title of CEO, and there was family involvement, but he retired from the business in the mid '80s, and we actually moved to New Zealand. It's a long, involved story, but at that point there was some management that was installed that were certainly accountable to my father. But there wasn't day-to-day overseeing, and essentially Tori Richard is a small business, and small businesses do best when there's owner-operators on the premise.
So the thing that I noticed kind of right off the bat is you revamped the look of the line, and then as well as the brand. Tori Richard, to me, or Cook Street was the other.
We have a number of brands. That's one of them. Cook Street is one of them.
It used to seem like it was more, the older type business people in downtown, but your new look is just more lively. It's a lot more, this fine resort. It's kind of more romantic. Was that something right off the bat that you did?
Well, one of the great things about this business that we're in is you get to reinvent yourself periodically, and you have to. As a matter of fact, it's required. The companies that don't eventually fall by the wayside. So when we came back, the company desperately needed to be reinvented, and by that I mean product. So the first goal was to modernize the product because it hadn't really been touched in a long time, and we were making a lot of obsolete products that sold in diminishing volumes each season.
What does that mean, modernized, though? Does that mean the materials are modernized, or is it the
Well,
look,
everything.
or-
Yeah, sorry. It's everything from the fabrication to the artwork that goes into the prints to the cut of the silhouettes. In the early 90s, we were making a lot of very slim cut shirts. And at that point, there was this full, more comfortable look that was coming back. Tommy Bahama hadn't started yet, but it was already permeating the market. And then they came on the scene in the mid-90s and really, interestingly enough, helped a lot of companies like ourselves by sort of mainstreaming this resort concept of apparel.
You know, when you started working with your dad, was it a hard relationship to work with your dad? Or was it pretty simple?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, there was nothing simple about it. It was probably as complex as father-son relationships get.
And you two were the only ones that in the family involved with the business?
Correct. We came back together, and his job, we had an arrangement where his job was to focus on strengthening the finances, and my job was to focus on the product and the sales. And that worked out great for about 5 years. But during that time, we butted heads all the time. And so much of it, I think, was probably because we both had strong personalities. And I wanted to break free from Daddy's watch, but at the same time, he was the one with the wisdom and the experience. So in retrospect, and my father passed away last year, he was the bigger person by allowing this to occur, because he could have just easily said, pack your bags, kid, and get out of here.
And so he retired, but then he came back with you. Was that
Right.
to guide you to make more of the company?
Well, it's interesting. I initially thought I'd be back here a year. This is in '94. And here I am, 11, 12 years later. I really thought the business was going to fail, and so did he at that point. The business was in trouble. And my father had a number of other sort of entrepreneurial endeavors, but this was his first one. So it had a special place for him. And we both moved back here with the intention of turning it around. I didn't really have any long-term goals at that point about what I was going to do beyond maybe spending a year. I thought I'd have a great, case history for going off to B school and seeing this family institution just decline.
So you mentioned that he had the experience and the wisdom. What are the 3 most important things that you learned from your father to help have the company succeed?
Well, it's interesting. As I listened to a few of the other radio shows, there seems to be a common thread, and number one, above all, was integrity and honesty. And your word is your bond. And so many of our relationships with our suppliers and also our customers is all done on a handshake, which is unusual today. We have relationships with our suppliers that goes back, in some cases, almost 50 years. And a lot of those wouldn't have occurred today had we not lived up to our commitments. That's number one, so integrity and honesty. Number 2, deliver under promise and over deliver. And gosh, number 3, be a good person, because there's a number of ways to try to get respect from your employees, but I think they inherently respect you if you're fair to them and reasonable and you're a decent person.